This is Tonight with Jane Dutton.
Tonight, more taxi violence in the country. 11 people killed, a vehicle riddled with 255 bullets. What can authorities do as commuters fear for their lives? Allegations of voter fraud and ghost voters, and there's still a week to go before the polls open in Zimbabwe. Even after Robert Mugabe, is the country still stuck with corruption? Also, what's in it for us at the BRICS summit? Small Business Minister Lindiwe Zulu explains how the alliance will benefit South Africans. This is Tonight with Jane Dutton.
A petrifying scene as a taxi is ambushed in KwaZulu-Natal. The weekend massacre has left both taxi drivers and their passengers shaken. Tonight, what has been done to stop the war between taxi operators? Shahan has the latest on this and all of the other day's news.
Thanks so much for that, Jane. Appreciate it. These are our top stories. Eskom's turnaround strategy, well, hasn't turned much around. The power utility released its financial results and the numbers are not looking good. It's reported a net loss of 2.3 billion rand compared to the previous year. And listen to this, Eskom recorded 19 billion rand in irregular spending since 2012. Eskom Chair Jabu Mabuza says this needs urgent attention.
This 19 billion is primarily a function of us having gone as far back as 2012. Secondly, it's been a function of us shaking this cupboard so hard that all skeletons are coming out. We are not able to tell you today that all the skeletons have come out. We will continue to shake this cupboard. There may be more that would still have to come. So when you look at these results, just bear in mind we've had to go back to as far as 2012. However, we need to then decide. We don't have the whole decade here. We've got to start to address Eskom of the future, turning Eskom around.
255 bullets sprayed into a taxi and 11 people killed in Kalenza and KwaZulu-Natal. It's the latest incident in a very troubled industry, and the National Taxi Alliance says police are not doing enough to address taxi violence in South Africa.
We're not satisfied, to say the least. But it's just a pity that, all lives are guaranteed by the Constitution of the country. And as an organization, we too can play a role in trying to circumvent, these incidences from taking place by, as I alluded to earlier on, to encourage dialogue other than, means of violence. But clearly, the one aspect that is so worrisome is that of, the prevalent bribery of, law enforcement authorities, because once you have that element creeping in, it would not be easy for them to focus and do their, jobs, according to what is expected of them.
The ANC in Gauteng says its Integrity Committee is looking at the controversies surrounding former Health MEC Kedani Mahlangu and its Chief Whip in the Provincial Legislature, Brian Hlongwa. Both have been elected to the party's PEC. Mahlangu's face widespread condemnation for the life Esidimeni tragedy, while Hlongwa is implicated in alleged corruption.
The conference doesn't discuss matters that are before a disciplinary committee or an integrity committee until those issues are concluded. They are reported to the relevant structure. If it's the NEC, they will be reported to the NEC, and the NEC will report to conference. And in this particular case, the conference said the incoming PEC, please finalize these matters immediately.
And Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba has officially announced the resignation of Director General Mkhuseli Apleni. Apleni turned to the courts last year after he was suspended by then Minister Hlengiwe Mkhize. He'll leave the department at the end of this month.
He has served the public service with distinction in various capacities. Mr. Apleni was recruited into the Department of Home Affairs in 2009 to help improve financial management, a task he discharged impeccably. When he arrived, the department was achieving only 25% of its annual performance targets. Since then, the department is achieving 89% of the targets, which underscored a marked improvement on delivery of services to our people, as well as on the performance of the department as a whole. As a result of its diligence, the department obtained its very first unqualified audit report in 2010-11 financial year, which has since been followed by the second unqualified audit report obtained for the 2016-17 financial year. Coming as it did ahead of the 2010 FIFA World Cup in South Africa, he ensured a competent team was in place to assist in fulfilling FIFA guarantees. In this period, the electronic movement control system was completed, thus giving impetus to the department's modernization program.
Well, those are your headlines. Back to Jane.
Thanks very much for that, Shahan. Tonight we go in depth on that taxi attack. It's been called one of the most deadly cases of taxi violence. But with commuters increasingly terrified to use taxis, what are authorities doing? Tonight, we have the spokesperson for the KwaZulu-Natal MEC for Community Safety, Kwanele Mqalane. Also with me is the Gauteng Legislators Committee Chair for Roads and Transport, Mafika Mqitsina. Thank you very much. Good to have you with us, both of you. Mr. Mqalane, what do we know so far happened? Are you getting any more details as to other than what we've been told?
Good evening and good evening to all the ENSA viewers at home. As you can recall that the MEC for Transport, Community Safety and Liaison, MEC Mkhulisi Kawunda, yesterday did convene an urgent meeting with the police in the area of Colenso where the incident happened, and he personally visited the scene to also find out what exactly happened, what transpired, and what could be the possible motive of this killing. At this stage, we have not been able to establish a link with some of the conflicts that are going on in KwaZulu-Natal within the taxi industry. However, we trust that a high-level team of investigators that has been assembled by the National Police Commissioner will be able to crack this case in a few space, and that will also allay fears to the community, because in our interaction yesterday with the communities, they did indicate that after this incident, there was a sense of fear in the community, but we're quite optimistic that our police have managed in the past to crack some of the most difficult cases. Therefore, on this one, there is no reason that we should doubt them. We appeal, therefore, to anybody with information to work with the police, work with us as government to make sure that perpetrators of this ugly incident are brought to book. But also, it points to the brutal nature of our society.
Okay, I'm hearing that the Durban police have 72 hours, or they've said that they'll get this cracked within 72 hours. Tell us what it is that they're going to be looking out for now.
Well, our understanding is that the team comprises of the Hawks and a senior team of detectives, and they will be all out looking for these perpetrators. Obviously, they are trained, they are specialists in conducting investigations, and it will be difficult at this stage to say this is what they will be looking for, this is what they will not be looking for. But in the main, the mandate that has been given by the National Commissioner and the Minister was that they must go all out, make sure that within this specified period, they chase and arrest this suspect. And our view as the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal is that we will want to see them arrested within that period, because it is in the best interest of justice that people who commit such a lawlessness act, such a criminal act and the brazen act, they are brought to book speedily. It also points to the brutal nature of our society that we have, and also the issue of the proliferation of firearm and the use of hitmen within the taxi industry, which we think is ravaging this industry, and therefore there is a need for decisive action on this one.
Okay, Mr. Mqina, I mean, we know at this stage that one person, a group of people, were lying in wait on the side of the road. They riddled the vehicle with over 225 bullets. I mean, it's an extraordinary crime. Sadly, we've heard about this happening time and time again. What do you make of what went down?
Evening, Jane, and evening to the viewers at home. I think it's appropriate, firstly, to pass our condolences as Gauteng government. And I know that we normally do this thing to pass condolences, condemn the incident that have happened, call on the law enforcement to take urgent steps to address the crisis. But we're still sticking to our stance that one death is one death too many, because those are the brothers, those are the families, those are the fathers.
The sad thing is that they were just coming from a funeral anyway.
Precisely, to bury one of their colleagues, and now they were coming back home. And as we understand, there's a committee that they belong to Gauteng, to one of our taxi association in Ivory Park. So we're very saddened, we're very angry. We think as government we should now take appropriate steps. I know that there are issues that had to do with the law enforcement agencies. We leave those issues at that level, but there are issues that have to deal with us as lawmakers, as legislatures.
And if you are responsible for keeping roads safe,
yes,
it's clearly not working, is it?
Yes.
So what should be done?
What we're going to be doing, we tried today to talk to the leadership of Santaco in Gauteng. We're trying to get the leadership into an agent meeting to see to it as to what can we do in the province, obviously working together with the Premier's office, working together with MEC Vadi to ensure that indeed we're bringing all the leadership of the taxi association into the table and say what are the issues. I know that most of these fights start because of the routes. And as you are aware that we have just passed, there's a bill that we're going to be contending with from the national government that now changed the National Land Traffic Act, which also is going to deal with the whole issues that relates to the routes and so on and so on. So we hope that with that bill, we're also going to sit down with the taxi association and says, can we resolve these issues of the routes as a matter of
Okay, let's listen to what the Santaco president had to say while we're getting the soundbite ready, just to let you know that you can phone in and ask questions of our guests if you've been a victim of taxi violence or you've got some comment to say. But Philip Taibach had this to say about what was going on.
The taxi industry is an organ which is operating on the basis of the laws that governs this country. And we have no right in this country to take away the rights of somebody operating a license. We can only make recommendations. And if government is the one which at the end of the day must take a decision to say that we are going to implement this.
What's your response to that, Mr. Trilane? I mean, how closely do you need to work with the taxi associations, and how do you flush out the bad apples there?
Well, not far from where the incident happened in the area of Ladysmith, last year MEC Kaunda suspended 2 taxi associations that are operating in that area for a period of 6 months after there's been incidents of killings that were happening in that area. So this means that government needs to exert its authority and make sure that we act according to the law, and also make sure that we intervene decisively to protect commuters, because if there is an exchange of fire, if there is a conflict among associations, the main victims are mostly commuters. Therefore, as government, ours is to act in the best interest of commuters and ensure that the safety of everybody, including the public, is not compromised. And therefore, in this case, we will also be working closely with the Gauteng government to make sure that where we can assist as KwaZulu-Natal, we are available to assist. Because remember, we also started an interprovincial committee, which historically started between KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng to also deal with the issue of hitmen who are committing crime in KwaZulu-Natal and then go hide in Gauteng, or commit crime in Gauteng, then come and hide in KwaZulu-Natal. And that project has been hugely successful with some of the arrest and tracing of the hitmen. And we think that we must resuscitate that committee, make sure that it's active on
unfortunately, the other industry is only perpetuated by those in the industry who have money, who have the market, who create the market for the hitmen to do so. But we really wish to condemn this particular deed with all the contempt that it deserves. This is barbaric in nature and it can't be allowed in our society.
All right, it can't be allowed. You've seen this happening on the roads. I mean, how frightening is that relationship between the hitman and the taxi industry, and how do they work together?
It's very frightening. I don't think I'll be the one to understand and know what's the modus operandi of the two.
But you need to get to the bottom of that in order to make roads safe. If you know the way they work, surely you can set up safe.
What I can tell the viewers is that indeed we are concerned that this is supposed to be a legit business operating based on the legitimacy of all the laws that govern any other business. But if you are having a business, then on one hand you're having hitmen, then it's a problem. So that is why the leadership of the taxi industry must take responsibility, because those hitmen, which they are called izinkabi, they are being hired by the owners of the taxi association. So it's important that you get the taxi owners to say, how do we ensure that this business operates as a business without izinkabi? And if there's a problem in relation to routes and so on, let's sit down and resolve the issues other than using the gun to resolve the disputes that we're having. So we don't want that coexistence of izinkabi and the taxi owners. So we're going to hold the taxi owners responsible.
You would think that would be the last resort, wouldn't you? Mr. Nqilani, I mean, I know you're spokesperson to that MEC, the clip that we heard over there. We are also hearing about the guns that are used in these events, in these massacres, are high caliber rifles. Who has access to that sort of rifle?
Well, we are hoping that the investigation will reveal exactly where are the sources of these high caliber firearms, because in most incidents where involving taxi conflict, you find that the hitmen are using these firearms. In KwaZulu-Natal, we have been rolling out a campaign together with the police to visit communities such as Umsinga, conducting operations in hostels and others. And there has been some resounding success in terms of the recovery of these firearms. But it seems as if the market goes on and on. It seems as if there's a no point where we can completely say we have wiped up and root out all these illegal firearms in the hands of our people. Therefore, it means criminals, they've got a market where they fund these firearms, and that's what we need to trace. But we are optimistic that our intelligence service will look into this matter. We are quite optimistic that our SAPS, they will also attend to this issue so that we are able to put an end on this. Like my colleague have said, we are expecting the taxi industry, like any other industry governed by law, to operate within the parameters of the law. Therefore, it is quite unfortunate that any difference and conflict in this industry is attended through a barrel of a gun, which is quite unfortunate.
Ketla from Lenasia Park is on the line with a question. Tell us who the question is aimed at and what would you like to say?
Okay, basically what I think on this particular incident, these people, they were coming from a funeral, of which I suspect that the killing of that particular person was involving the taxi association. So this was a response from the family to say, you killed our person, now we will show you guys. So I think it's just within the family and the taxi association now that is motivated all these things.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Nqilani, is this a tit for tat? I mean, is that what you see most of the time? Is that what the driver is here? Or is it often a financial one?
Well, I'm quite battling with the line, and I didn't hear the last question. But obviously, it is quite unfortunate that when people are returning from a funeral, there will therefore be people who will then plot an ambush. But also, it also points to the absence and the deteriorating state of Ubuntu among us as people, because this shows really the high level of brutality and lawlessness in our society. But we hope that as different spheres and arms of government working together with the leadership of the industry, we will be able to get to the bottom of this case. And government will act decisively where there is a need to shut down operation, where there is a need for government to cancel some of the operations among or within individuals in the taxi association, or also to suspend associations from existing completely. Government must look into those options. We will look at all the legal avenues that are available to us to make sure that we act decisively on this matter.
Okay, and what do you think? I mean, do you close roads down? How do you strip taxi operators of their licenses? Is that happening in an effective way?
Yes, I actually concur with my colleague from KZN. We have done it before in Gauteng. We have shut the routes. You will know that there was a difficult war that was taking place between Nanduwe and Wata. That is Soweto Taxi Association, and we shut down the rank, and there was peace, because it brought the associations to talk together.
Doesn't it move
and
them
also
to another rank,
coexist.
possibly?
No, they didn't,
Okay.
because the police were there, law enforcement were there, because they can't encroach into the other route that doesn't belong to them. But sanity prevailed, and sense came to them that they have to pay for their cars every month. They have to feed for their families. So instead of them sitting at home because they can't operate because of the war, they rather call us. We mediated, and that war was resolved. Now they're coexisting, they're working together, there's peace. So we shut down the routes if indeed, and we withdraw also the permits in those routes. That is a deterrent. But now we need a long-term solution. We can't be always saying we condemn, condolences. That is why in Gauteng, working together, as I've indicated to the Premier and the MEC, we're going to call the leadership of the taxi association. As we know that they are fragmented, they've got all these associations, so we're going to call Santaco.
Okay, before you go into the conversation, you're going to have, excuse me interrupting, we've got Tobias on the line from Krugersdorp. Tobias, go ahead.
Good evening, how are you?
Good evening, Tobias. Go ahead. What's your question, please?
No, I just want to come with a solution, if possible. Look, I am a citizen of South Africa, and this taxi violence has been going on from the time when I was still in a primary school. I suggest that the government must come up with a plan where they will come up and introduce structures which will run this industry successfully. And from what I can remember, most, if not 90% of the names of the people which are heading taxi association, they have been there before I was born. So they need to shift and give the new generations to run this successfully. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Tobias. Nkulani, did you want to answer that? I mean, he's made a good point there, isn't it, that they're characters who are well known to the police, clearly, and they are still operating. Time for a clean sweep, time to possibly move a new office in to focus purely on the way taxis operate and the violence surrounding them.
No, sorry, the line, I'm really battling on this side. Yes, it is a matter that we need to look into in terms of strengthening legislation, making sure that it's bites to those who are caught on the wrong side of the law within the industry. But also we feel that the culture of dialogue needs to be introduced in the taxi industry. There is, however, a concern that the MEC has expressed in the past where there's an involvement of some of the police officers in some of these incidents that have happened. And we think that that matter, the MEC has raised sharply with the minister, and we think that something urgent needs to be done, because those police officers are compromising government, are compromising investigation. And in some of the incidents, you find that some are even using state firearms to commit those crimes, and that's a serious issue which has to be attended to so that we are able to isolate even criminals within the police system itself.
For the 15 million who use the taxi industry, very briefly from you because we've run out of time, is there a message of hope? Can you tell those who take these taxis that they will be safe?
Indeed, our commuters will be safe. We'll work with our law enforcement agencies to ensure that they are indeed safe. We are a government. We'll take any other appropriate step to ensure that our commuters are safe, including those that want to operate the business as legitimate business to feed their families. So we're saying, calling on all the taxi association, particularly the leadership, that please, let's put the guns down, come to the table, let's resolve all our differences for the sake of our economy and for the sake of our well-being and our families.
from your lips, Mr. Mqinga and Mr. Nqilani. Thank you very much. It was great talking to both of you. Still ahead, is small business the answer to a big problem in South Africa, with small businesses driving our economy? What is being done to help them and create more jobs? Tonight, Small Business Minister Lindiwe Zulu answers your questions.